Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Sober Yoga Girl. I am so excited to have my friend Joe Walduck here on the podcast with me. And Joe and I met in like early days sobriety on the amazing internet, the sober world on Facebook. And I feel like we've been talking about doing this podcast episode for like ages, and then things kept coming up and it kept not happening. Here we are, and I'm so excited to have you here. So welcome, Joe. How are you?
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad that we're finally making it work.
Yes.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. Now, today's a good day. We are having a good day, and so yay, smiles. Yes.
So tell us a little bit about kind of where you are in the world, a little bit about yourself.
So I currently live in Lyon in France, which is about in the middle of the country-ish. So as far away from the sea as you can get. And so I'm hoping to move to the seaside because the ocean is life and we need to return to it. I've been in France for about 15 years. I'm from the UK. I have been sober for nearly 900 days, I think.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. I signed up for a 28-day challenge, back in October 2019, and then I was like, fuck it, let's carry on for a bit. And I'm so glad that I did. Yeah.
That's amazing. And that's really similar to me as well. You know, I signed up for 28 days and here I am 3 years later, which is kind of cool.
I know. I've been wondering, because I work as a coach. So I work as a life coach, as a business coach, but primarily as a sober coach, like people, working to get sober, but also people then, once they've done the getting sober stuff, it's like, oh shit, now I need to maintain sobriety. Like I need to remove those things that were kind of drawing me back to the booze. And that's seeing that, as I know you do as well, like seeing the people in the early days of sobriety and struggling with that kind of thing of sobriety. I'm like, I'm so lucky that it was hard, right? It was hard. It was hard as shit in the early days, in the early weeks, and in the early months. And I just haven't had one, right? And I haven't gone back I haven't entertained the idea of moderation or anything else. And I'm kind of scared of it. I don't know if many people talk about this. I don't feel like we do. But I think I have a healthy, I think it's healthy, I hope it's healthy, a fear of what would happen if I did go back to it.
Yeah.
Do you get that? Or are you on a never again? Where are you at?
Well, I had a few drinks before I hit 1,000 days. I don't know if you heard that episode with Sarah Williamson we did. So she interviewed me on my 1,000 days sober, and I shared in the interview that I actually drank right when I got to Bali.
Okay.
And I think having a fear of moderation is probably a really good thing. Because for me, it was I just got really far away from my sobriety and started doing all this other stuff. I wasn't doing a lot of sober work in the fall. I was doing a lot more kind of business coaching and, yoga teacher trainings. And I had a few drinks and I felt horrible, not guilty. I don't have any guilt. Right. I don't have anything going on there. I was just literally physically your body is so clean of alcohol for so long, and then you just have 3 drinks and you're like, I've been hit by a truck. I cannot. And my mood, I feel my mood, and that's just having this awareness. I notice my mind going down, and it was nowhere near the lows of drinking because it was just one time. But I definitely have times when I still think about it. I romanticize it. And so I think a fear of moderation is a great place to be.
I guess it's whatever works. I remember talking, I was talking with my therapist who is also sober a few weeks ago. And I was talking about a time that when I was at uni, and my mum hardly ever drank and doesn't really drink at all anymore. And she came to visit me in uni and I got her shit-faced. Like we drank so much wine and we had an amazing time because it was this like uninhibited, like raw connection that we had both struggled with before and that we had both struggled with afterwards. And I can remember when I was telling my therapist about it, I was like, this is weird. Like this is the first time in over 2.5 years that I'm talking about alcohol as like a good thing and as so like that kind of social lubricant and what have you. And she was like, yeah, I mean, it does have some good points. Like it's easy to demonize it. Not that it has some good points, but like it serves a purpose.
Yes. Right? Otherwise, why would we do it?
Otherwise, why would we do it? Why would pretty much all nations, all cultures, like, yeah, why would we go to it? And I was like, oh yeah, okay. But then coming out of that session, went back into sober coaching with somebody and I was like, oh yeah, all right. Alcohol was a helpful tool 20 years ago with my mum, and it is not a helpful tool for me now. Mm-hmm. Like, and so, okay, all right, I'm not going to go into the romanticizing of it in 2022 for Joe today, but it was helpful for me. It served its purpose 20 years ago.
Yeah, I love that. So tell us a bit about what was your life before you got sober?
So I was a teacher. I was an English teacher. English is a foreign language. English is a subject. Communications. I ended up working a lot in order to pay for the lifestyle that I felt that I needed in order to cope with how much I was working. So if you can see the recipe for burnout in there, burnout meets like active addiction. Yeah.
Can I just say, I love the way you describe that because I feel like it describes me to a T. Like I was like tutoring, teaching yoga, teaching at school, like working 24/7 so that I could afford the partying on the weekend to cope with what I was doing myself.
To cope with that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's like, and it's such a negative spiral and it's so hard to see your way out of it. Like, as with most negative spirals.
Totally.
And like, so I was in Paris for 8 years, and Paris is as a young person, and Paris is a single person. Like it was amazing. It was super, super fun. It was party, work, live. Like there was all of that. And then I moved to Lyon, and kind of it was a smaller life. But I had, my schools were local. I was very local in the restaurants, like near my place, in the bars. Like I knew everybody knew me. I was smoking a lot. I was drinking a lot, and my small little life was kind of fine. I mean, there were the niggling thoughts at 3 o'clock in the morning when you wake up and you're like, what am I doing with my life? Or when you wake up at 12 o'clock on the Sunday and you can't remember your name or the person next to you's name, or like, you're like, where did I put my brain last night? I can't find it. Oh no, I think I left it in the bar. There were a few of those moments too. And I ended up actually leaving teaching for a whole bunch of reasons. But I learned how to put down a boundary. And I was like, this, if I'm going to renew my contract for next year, this is what I expect, this is what I want. And they said no. And I said, okay, fine, then I'm going to go. And so I left and retrained as a coach. Drank all my way through the training. Didn't think about, like, what is alcohol doing? Because, it's normalized everywhere, but particularly I feel in France.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not the stereotype that I think all of the Americans think of when they think of, the 2 bottles of wine at lunch or whatever, but it is very much normalized. But my best friend at the time had gone, she was sober who was like a drinky friend. She'd had a few sober Octobers, dry Januaries and what have you. And she ended up coming to a party at mine. She came down from Paris. And she was sober, I don't know, 6 months, maybe a year. And she stayed up and hung out with us until like 3 o'clock in the morning and showed how much fun you can have while still being sober. And I was like, oh, maybe this isn't a horrible idea. And so just after like a week, maybe 10 days after I got certified as a coach, I was like, okay, my friend says that when you stop drinking, like you have all this energy, you have a clearer head, you have clearer thoughts. It was like, okay, I'm setting up my own company to work for myself. I'm going to give myself a month break to give myself all of this energy, to give myself this time, this motivation, what have you. I'm going to see if I can do a month off. And I did, and that was October 2019.
Wow.
Yeah. And thank fuck I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, your story's so interesting to me because I feel like most people do it the other way in that they get sober and then decide to become a coach. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just think it's so interesting how you were in coaching first. And then the way you went into your sobriety, it sounds like you already were seeing the benefits, the way you've just framed that is like, I'm going to give myself time. I'm going to give myself energy. Whereas I don't think I was thinking that way. Like I was like, I'm depriving myself of like the greatest joy in my life.
I mean, it was 100%. That was there too.
Yeah.
Like, of course. And I mean, I can remember students asking me like, what do you like to do in your spare time? And I was like, well, I like to drink at this bar, and I like to drink at this cafe, and I like to drink at this restaurant, and I like to drink at home. Because that was it. Like everything revolved around, because it can do when you're in those kinds of circles, when you're in that kind of life. But yeah, I mean, thanks to years and years of therapy for various things, and the coaching training, like, yeah, I think there was already that kind of mindset shift of, all right, there are going to be parts of this that suck, but we are still choosing to do it. So let's focus on the parts that don't suck quite so much.
Right. So tell me about what happened next. So you became a coach, you left teaching, became a coach, did your 28 days sober. Mm-hmm. How did your life change in sobriety?
So then I quit after about 40 days, I think. I quit smoking, and I was a heavy smoker. Wow. So that was the 1st of December. And then on Christmas of that year, so about 2.5 months sober, there were a couple of things over Christmas Eve and Christmas Day where essentially people were asking me if I was trans. Like one person was uninhibited mentally, and the other person was uninhibited alcoholically. And so they both thought that it was a question that they could ask, which, most people tend not to ask those kinds of questions to complete strangers. And so the person who asked me on Christmas Eve, I kind of brushed it off, and I was like, I don't really want to talk about this with you, strange person on the street. And then on Christmas Day, there's a whole story, possibly for a different episode, but my answer was yes, right? And the answer came clearly to me.
Wow.
That, yeah, do you know what I am? And I mean, I've known for years, I've known for decades that I knew that I wasn't a man. I knew that I wasn't that I wasn't that thing that people saw me as, or the box that they put me in. But it didn't feel bad enough. It didn't feel bad enough to do anything about it, right? Mm-hmm. To do the blowing up of life that comes with, or that can come with speaking your truth, and then acting with it. And so I had the realization literally that day, like that Christmas Day, I was like, I can either recognize this and honor it and stay sober and come out as trans and let the chips fall where they do, or I can go back to drinking and pretending that it's fine and that I don't care. That felt like a really clear choice that night, and it was a really easy choice. I was like, I like who I am when I'm sober. I mean, I was only 2.5 months sober, but we don't say only ever. And number two, that was enough. It was enough for me to see the potential and the possibility of life in authenticity, in integrity. And so I came out, like within a week, I told everybody because, I was 35. And I was like, fuck it. I've been pretending for long enough. And so the chips have fallen in various places. It's not, as a British person living in one of the most bureaucratically annoying countries in the world, living through Brexit and a pandemic and transitioning, that's not been easy. It hasn't always been easy with my family. And then, as you know, my dad and my stepdad both got sick. Both of them struggled to an extent with me being Joe, with me being out as trans. And they got sick. And they both sadly died. Have died in the last 6 months. And so sometimes, a question that does come back to me is, if I could rewind 3 years ago and just think, don't get sober, don't have that realization, stay in the mud, stay in the mist, where it's kind of fine, it's not great, but it's all right. Would I do it in order to have a better relationship with them towards the end of their life? And the answer is no. Sometimes, of course, the answer is yes, right? At 2:00 in the morning when I'm berating myself for being a terrible child, but not very often. Yeah, the benefits of knowing your own truth and living it, on purpose, oh my God, they're uncountable.
Wow, my goodness, I just got such shivers. Thank you so much for sharing and being so vulnerable. And wow.
It's a lot. Thank you for holding this space, and thank you for holding, hands throughout time and space, as we have done over the last couple of years. And I think it's important, particularly within the sober world, a huge amount of pressure and editing, and when you get sober, you can still go out 5 times a week, and you can still have all the friends, and you can still go dancing, and you're going to have all of this energy and all this money and perfect skin and perfect relationships, and you're going to get an amazing job and be a coach on top of it, because everybody becomes a coach. And everything's gonna improve and you're gonna feel amazing. And it's that can be true, but also life is still life. Mm-hmm. And so since getting sober, I have lost people through death and through relationships, friendships ending. There has been a huge amount of sadness. There's been loneliness. There's been pain. There's been fear. And it's all of that hard stuff pales in comparison to all of the benefits.
Right.
And I think that's, if we do focus, like we were saying before, if we can find a way to focus on the benefits and on the positives while honoring at the same time how hard all of the hard stuff is, it's it makes it all worth it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me about the sober coaching that you do now. How do you work with people? What do you do? Do you have a particular niche, or do you work with everyone?
So I want to work with all of the trans people who have a problem with alcohol.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm saying that jokingly, but also it's true. Hello, trans people, or potentially trans, or gender questioning, or gender non-conforming people. Come hit me up. I think there's so much work to be done still in the queer community.
Yeah, 100%.
There's a huge amount of predatorism. Can you tell she was an English teacher? Predatory behavior. The fact that fucking big alcohol sponsors all of the Pride events. And
yes.
And
I feel like it's such a thing in like in the experience that I had in the Pride community when I was living in Canada, I just felt like there's such an association with partying and drinking in that community. Like that was the experience I had. I was like, it wasn't my direct friends, but it was like a close relationship of mine. And I just feel like that makes sense that big alcohol sponsors so much of that. And there's so much of a role it plays in the culture, it seems.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, you know, no matter where the origin of the problematic relationship with alcohol or other substances, like whatever that particular journey has been for you, like a lot of us in the queer community have integrated trauma. We have PTSD. We have like all of those things that, of course, are going to send us towards numbing, towards social lubrication, towards like, oh, okay. Like also because it's what we see on TV, in the media, like in the culture. It's like, okay, well, if you're gay, like this is what you do. If you're queer, this is what you do. And so breaking that mold and like that is something that I want to work on more in terms of like creating safe spaces for particularly young queer people that don't just revolve around alcohol. Right? That don't just revolve around booze and drugs. So, I mean, that I guess would be more for like the activism-y things. So a lot of the sober coaching, the one-to-one sober coaching that I do tends to be like close hand-holding for people who need help kind of getting out of that negative spiral and like stopping it and then turning it around into a positive thing. And then more often it's going to be working with people who have done like that initial 100 days and they're like, I'm really tempted to go back to booze because when I'm drunk I forget that my husband's a dick, or I forget that I hate my job, or I don't care so much about the fact that I'm trans and I haven't told anybody. And it's all of those blockages where oftentimes, because I'm not a therapist and because I have like extensive-ish experience and relationships with therapy and therapists, oftentimes I will say to a client, like, make sure that you're also talking about this in therapy. Like, let's take this double-pronged approach. But yeah, it's going to be making sure that you don't have to numb out of your life, that you don't have to escape it, and facing up to everything that becomes clear once you take the beer goggles away. And there's a lot that becomes clear.
Yeah. And I love this example that you've given because I feel that there's so, like this example that you've given, I've seen it in so many people. It's like they hit, 90 days, 2 months, 3 months, and then there's something. My teacher Rolf always says like the sand settles and the water clears, and you know what it is. For me, it was like, I literally hate my job and my life. And for other people, I'm sure there's a lot of people that go through that like crisis of like, is this my right orientation? Is this my right identity? And I don't see a lot of people out there offering that work that I've come across. And so I just think your offering is just so like, it's going to help so many people. It's just amazing.
So.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That means that means a huge amount, because I'm in awe. Like, I'm still intimidated to do any of your yoga classes. Like, which is ridiculous because I know you, but like my heart knows your heart. My body doesn't know your yoga so much. And I mean, I think we spoke about my my other yoga teacher friend, and like those kinds of experiences. But I see in the comments that people leave on your posts, and they're like, Alex, you're changing lives out here. And I'm like, yeah, you are.
Oh,
fantastic.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's making a comeback, actually? I was thinking of you because you were part of Sober Girls Yoga for a bit. It's a secret, but by the time this episode comes out, the announcement will already have been made. So we're making a Sober Girls Yoga revival, which I'm really, really excited for.
Oh my God.
So it kind of died for about a year because I was trying to make it more inclusive by calling it Sober Curious Yoga. And Sober Curious Yoga is still staying. It's not going. But what I've learned in the year is that people really liked that, like, women's only safe space, the girl club, you know? So it's making a comeback. So maybe with the revival, maybe that would be a time to dip your toe in.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Good for you for listening to your heart and to, you know, what the other people want as well. That's great.
It's your unique offering, you know, like, and I tried to move away from what I thought my offering was to include more people. And it's funny because sometimes when you do that, when you try to open it to more people, you lose more people, you know? And so it's trusting that people will find you even if. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And recognizing also, like, you know, having the two right people who are there with their full minds and hearts and wanting to be there, that is so much better than having 10 people who are like, meh, whatever, it was fine.
Totally.
Like,
100%.
it would be great if those two people could pay our rent. Like, fully recognize the importance of the money that comes from the 10 people. But yeah, having, like, getting those hearts in place is really important.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I have one more question for you before we wrap up.
Okay.
I'm wondering if you have any advice for someone who is on the start of their sober journey. What would you give them? What would you say?
Oh my God. It's such a good question, and my answer depends every single time.
Yeah.
Keep a record of everything. Write everything down. Journal, record, vlog, make a fake Facebook profile, like whatever, but keep a record of everything. Let yourself honor the hard, any physical sensations, the mental and emotional hard things, but definitely make sure that you record, that you give full importance to the good. Like, find the good, find the things that you're grateful for, even if it's just one more day sober. Like, that.
Absolutely.
There have absolutely been days over the last 2.5 years where I've been like, I'm just going to go to bed at 2:00 in the afternoon, and I might wake up this evening, or I might just wake up tomorrow morning, and my one achievement is going to be staying sober, and that is enough. And it is. Like, it needs to be enough on those days, because it's hunkering down sometimes in order to spring back up the next day, right? Like, today is a really good day for me. Yesterday was really good until about 3:00, then it was really bad, and so I went to bed for a couple of hours, and, you know, allowed today to be good rather than feeling bad and going to the bar and, you know, making myself feel slightly better maybe for half an hour, and then a hell of a lot worse for a really long time.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes so much sense.
How about you? What's your advice?
What's my advice? Oh my God, so many. I mean, most of the time I have something different to say, like you said, but I think my most common thing that I come back to is find your community. And that for me, like, it's truer and truer. We're chatting before we started the episode about the more I evolve into this new person, the more I'm leaving behind old family and friends, which is okay, but you need to surround yourself with the new people that are on the same path and like-minded, or else you'll feel really alone.
Yeah, absolutely. Find your community. Yeah. That's really
Thanks for asking me. I don't think anyone's ever asked me. It's really nice.
I mean, this is it. Like, you're the queen. You're the queen behind the microphone. So you get to ask the questions. But yeah, no, it's great. It's good to know. Yeah.
Well, Joe, this was amazing. I'm so glad we finally did this. Thank you so much for coming and being on the show. And thanks for being my friend. And
it's my honor. Thank you.
I'm sure I'll see you soon.
You will. You definitely will.
All right. Take care.
You too.
Bye.